this glute warm-up, you're going to focus on two main things. The first being good hip mobility to allow our glutes to fire optimally. The second being glute activation. We're going to try and warm up the glute max, the glute med, and the glute min, all through different movements to make sure we get a good feeling in our glutes before beginning that workout. For the first hip mobility exercise, we're going to be performing fire hydrants. For your fire hydrants, you're going to get down on all fours. You're going to have your hands shoulder width apart as well as your knees shoulder width apart. I'm going to show you working my right hip so that you can see what's happening throughout the range of motion. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring our hip into flexion. So I'm going to bring my knee as close to my elbow as possible. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to bring our hip into abduction. So I'm bringing that hip out as wide as I can. And the third thing we're going to do is we're going to rotate the hip. So once I get out as wide as I can, I'm going to rotate that hip up and around, and that is 1 rep. In real time, it looks like so. Flexion, abduction, rotation, and I'm riding through in a nice big circle with the hip. One thing you really want to focus on as you're doing this exercise is making sure that your range only comes through the hip and not through the lower back. So as I'm doing that circle, I'm not hiking up my hip and rotating through my lower back. The next mobility exercise is going to be a segmented cat-camel. When you're doing this exercise, you want to get a good range of motion through your lumbar spine, your thoracic spine, and finally your cervical spine. So we're going to do our cat-camel starting into extension all the way up, and then we're going to go back up into flexion all the way down. So here's 1 rep for you. I have a neutral spine. I'm going to dip into extension starting through my lower back, my mid back, my upper back, and finishing with my head. From there, I'm going to start again at my lower back, going into flexion, mid back, upper back, and finally my neck. A second rep, we're going to dip all the way down into extension, mid back, upper back, and neck. And then 1 more rep, dipping at my hips, lower back, mid back, upper back, and finishing with my neck. When you're performing this exercise, make sure to go nice and slow and really try and segment each portion of your spine. The next mobility exercise, we're going to focus specifically on your hip flexors. So the muscles riding right at the front of your hip. When I do this exercise, I'm going to get to 90 degrees at my front knee, 90 degrees at my back knee, and then I want to fire my glute and the back leg as best as I can as I drive forward to feel that stretch in my hip. I'm going to rock deep into the range of motion, as deep as I can get it, and then I'm going to rock out. And I'm going to go again. Squeeze at the glute, coming forward, and then I drive back. When doing this exercise, the biggest mistake people make is they stretch their lower back and not their hip flexor. So I see this done all the time where people are stretching through their lower back, they're getting a stretch in their hip flexor, but we really want to minimize what the lower back is doing in order to optimally stretch that hip flexor. And the way that we do that is to keep our glute firing again. Throughout that range of motion, I feel a good stretch, I come back, and I try and get a little bit deeper with every rep. With the rectus femoris stretch, I'm going to get back into that 90-90 position at my front knee and my back knee. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the angle of the stretch a little bit by grabbing my back leg. I pull that back leg up as high as I can, and then I perform my glute contraction while driving forward. I'm going to feel this stretch about mid-thigh, that's what we're aiming for, and I'm going to rock forward and back for about 8 reps before switching sides. When you're doing this exercise, some of the things that might make it more accessible to you is having a bench or a wall to support yourself as you're trying to get that back leg up. If you can't bring that back heel to your butt, no problem. Just get as good a stretch as possible when doing the rectus femoris stretch. For hip hugs, you want to stand with your feet shoulder width apart. From there, I'm going to bring one knee up, driving that hip into flexion, and then I'm going to hug the knee into my chest. I'm going to switch to the other side, same thing, hugging for about 3, 2, 1, and I perform alternating reps as I'm doing my hip hug. The other thing you want to do while performing hip hugs is as I'm bringing that one knee into my chest, I'm squeezing the opposing glute. So I squeeze the glute nice and tight, and then I switch to the other side, squeezing that glute nice and tight. What that's gonna do is just make sure that we're keeping a nice neutral spine and we're not dipping into extension as I bring that hip up into flexion. For my glute bridges, I'm gonna start by lying on the floor, having my hands out to the side. Head is resting, my feet are gonna be shoulder width apart, and I'm gonna bring my feet nice and close, not too close to me, but at a good distance, bringing my heels to my butt and not being too far out. When I come up for my bridge, I want to start by squeezing my glutes. So my glutes come up. I'm going to hold the squeeze for 3, 2, 1, making sure I can feel it. I'm going to tap the floor, and I'm going to drive up again by squeezing my glutes. 3, 2, 1. That's 2 down, and I'm going to go for 1 more. Up, squeezing the glutes and holding 3, 2, 1, and 3. When you're doing this exercise, you want to make sure, again, just that your feet are close enough to you so you feel your glutes contracting, but not too close so that all you can feel is your quads tightening up as you're doing that glute bridge. RKC plank, I want to get into a good planking position, feet shoulder width apart, elbows shoulder width apart, and then my head is facing straight forward. From here, I'm going to contract my glutes, squeezing and holding nice and strong for 10 seconds, and then I'm going to rest. I come back up and I repeat. When doing this exercise, one of the things you really want to make sure is that you don't have a dip in your lower back. So you don't want to see a little arch here. You want to have your stomach on strong while you're contracting your glutes for that 10 seconds. When performing side lying leg raises, you're going to start by lying on your side with one leg stacked on top of the other. Your other arm and the hand that's underneath is going to support the neck. And from here, I'm lifting my leg up as high as I can, holding for a second and coming back down. I'm going to repeat, lifting up as high as I can, holding for a second and coming back down. One helpful tip is to have the hand that's on top be on those glute muscles just to help give some extra feedback so you can really make sure they're activating as you perform the exercise.